Is sewing without pins an actual reality? Well, it is, and you can sew with few pins. It's really about learning the skill of being able to manipulate the fabric underneath the machine. That is when you can start using less pins. And in this video, I want to talk with you my top tips on just how to get started sewing with no pins or fewer pins, so you can start implementing this and get better results on your sewing. Welcome back, my friends. My name is Evelyn Wood. If you are just brand new here, welcome. Here on this channel, we talk everything about sewing, garment sewing, so you can get better at your sewing. It is my dream to see so many more people sewists in the world creating their own clothes, you included. So if you have enjoyed this channel and other videos, do hit the subscribe button down below and do share this my videos out when you find them useful. Is the best way to also spread the message of sewing. And well, the dream is to sew without any pins, right? Well, maybe not entirely that. You can sew with very few pins, and it is something that you'll want to actually aim for and progress to as you go in your sewing journey. So sewing without any pins at all is not really a reality, but sewing with fewer pins is. It's really about learning to manipulate the fabric and get good and skilled at being able to manipulate the fabric at the machine. That is the whole skill of sewing, is being able to do that. And as you learn and develop this skill, you can use fewer and fewer pins, which will speed up your workflow and actually, in a lot of cases, give you better results. Trust me, yes, I promise. I'll show you in a minute. And so I was hemming these curtains here for my studio revamp, which is, I am this close to finishing if you're following along. I think the vlog of which will be out next week, so stay tuned for that one. But I was hemming these curtains with no pins, and it sort of it came to me to think about all the things that I'm doing that you don't talk about and you don't see in videos. Although it's right in front of you, you watch me do it, but you don't see it unless you know. It's these minor things of feeling and touching and moving the fabric this way and that way. That is what I want to discuss with you, and I'm going to actually show you what I'm doing here on this curtain as well. But first, I think there's two easy ways to get started using no pins or fewer pins, and that is, one is first on straight or short seams or straight seams that have notches. So it's all about being straight, and on grain is easier. Trust me, you know this already. And so that you can start doing this on seams like that, or seams that have longer seams that have notches. This is what notches are for. It's so that you can mark the different pieces of your garment, the seam line along the way, and you know that those pieces have to match up. So as long as you've got notches there, you can work through longer seams as well. And then the other one is on, say, simple straight grain hems. It's all about the straight grain and straightness, right? That is where you start and easy. And it's like a fabric that doesn't move on you, of course, as well. So I'm doing a simple double turn hem here on a fabric that's not moving too much, but it's a great place to start to develop these skills. And it is a skill, it will take time. Whether you are using pins or not, all of these techniques actually still apply to be more skilled and to get better results in your garment sewing. So don't think this is just about sewing with no pins. You would still sew, I still sew with pins usually. There are some cases that I can sew without, but most cases I can sew with fewer pins, that it speeds up the process and actually just the workflow in general. And so learning these is always going to improve your sewing as well. Now, there are four main points here that we need to think about. And the first is assessing your situation correctly. So it is not feasible that anything can be sewn without pins. It's just not practical. There are things that just will require pins. It's not that you don't have the skill or anything like that. It's some things are just going to need it. So pick your battles wisely. Pick straight, something on a straight grain is going to be much easier. Just straight cuts in general, easier than trying to do it on curves. Of course, the big one is fabric choice. So slippery fabrics are always going to need more clamp spots, so to say, to hold it in place. So pick your battles. And then the next key to doing this is pressing properly. You knew I was going to say this already, didn't you? So pressing properly is absolutely key, particularly with hems like I have done. So I have already pre-pressed this in place. I have pressed each of the turns separately and I've pressed them crisp and neat and it's sitting perfectly before I'm going to sew it. You know, one of my rules is that it must be pinned perfectly or pressed, but it must be prepared perfectly because as how it is at the machine here as you go through is how it's going to be sewn. So if it doesn't look good before you start, it's never going to look good after you sew it. And so using fewer pins, of course, is absolutely key. Even if you use pins, you need to press everything and prepare everything perfectly first to make the job at sewing easy. We've talked about sewing is like 70% preparation before. This video here, I'm going to link that down below for you. It's definite must watch. And so let's get to some of the nitty gritty here. So one of the things the top things I'm thinking about as I'm sewing is that you want to hold each of the layers taut to manage sections. So what this means is if you have notches, they are in fact managing your sections of your seam, your hem, whatever it is. So if you're using with no pins, the key is to think way back here and make sure this point here is lined up to get smaller and smaller sections. And so, for example, right now, I would lean right back like this, make sure my hem is sitting nice and flat so it's not all twisted or moving in any way because it's pressed properly, remember, and mark a little bit. And basically my hand here, my fingers are going to act like a pin. Or, of course, just put a pin in that spot so that your hand is free to do other things. These are things that you work towards in your sewing. You don't have to do all of these things, but this is just giving you ideas of what you could work towards in your sewing. And so what you do is you manage these sections, right? So this here, I would keep like pinned. I've got a little claw here, and I would actually pull these two layers taut underneath. Now, you do not stretch this at all. It is just pulling these two layers taut so that they actually snap into place and they kind of like snap into the same length. And then that way you can sew it and one won't get pushed over the other. So for example, when you sew this, what quite happens is you would sew it and you know that like this happens and this moves like this. By holding this tight like this, you can see when I move my finger over the top, it makes it very, very hard for it to actually move around on you. So what does this look like? So holding them taut. Now do not push or pull this under the fabric at all. You're just holding it taut. Let the machine do its thing. You'll get more experienced at managing your machine and knowing the speed and what rate that it glides through. Make sure you hold this straight and hold this tight. Keep tension right on here. So don't pull through here. I'm holding the actual seam line here and the seam line at the back here. And that is what I'm holding place and holding taut. That way you can sew and it is snapped in beautifully, right? That's the first one. Let me just sew a wee little bit more here. Now the second one is that I use all of my hands and fingers to actually manage the ease in this. So your hands are essentially the pins when you're doing this. So if you notice, I've actually not let go of that section yet that I had clamped in here because that is where my pin. Now ordinarily you just put a pin here, a perpendicular one so that it locks in that place, but I still have my hand here. So what I mean is you must minimize all the drag lines and use all of your hands and fingers. So as soon as you get to this, you can see here how I've sewn here and all of this is here. I would not sew anything more before I move all of this drag and weight and I evenly out. Look at this. Now I have a flat surface to sew with and how it sits here is how it's going to be sewn. So you don't want to have all this here because guess what? It's going to put all that in your sewing. And so you want to make sure you pull out any ease. When I get closer here, do you see my finger? Still here. So I have downward pressure on this area here that I'm holding this in place just like a pin. And so this is where I'm going to move my thumb here. When you get to these smaller sections like this, you manage everything. So I put my hand over this section to hold all of this in place and hold on this place as well so that this basically it can't move. I'm holding tension right near my finger. Now, of course, if this creeps you out a bit, definitely when you first start sewing, you do not put your hands this close. But as you get more experienced, you know you can. And see, look at this. I automatically was moving all of my garment up, all of the drag. and still I have to hold that very same spot. Now this is where one little pin can come in handy, because you can sort of like just use it to ease in. So you kind of, instead of your fingers basically, use your little pin here to just ease in those tiny little bits. You don't have any tucks, but it just helps to counteract the foot. As it presses this way, you want to go this way. Because we all know if you don't, when you just pull your foot, all of this ends up here, right? And you end up with these bunches and it moves like this. Then you think, oh my goodness, then you have to fold it over. Then you end up with a horrible hem and all these chunks in here. We all know this, you've been there, done that. This is how you counteract that. So that's basically the process. Let me show you one more time my next seam without stopping, my next little bit that I'm sewing. So first of all, make sure you section off your next section. You can generally put a pin there first to start with, but as you get more experienced, you can just clamp it with your hand. Make sure you're pulling these 2 layers taut so that you can actually sew this, not stretching it. And of course, it depends on the fabric very much how this will go. And then start to use all of your hands and fingers to manipulate and manage this. And I actually use my entire arm here a lot of the time to help pull everything back here so that I don't get any pushing from the needle. So it's about using everything. So I would often hold this here, and that's how I'm actually pulling this taut underneath the needle here at this point. See what I mean? These are things that are often right in front of you when you watch someone on a tutorial, but you don't actually see it. You don't listen and hear. You know that they're putting downward pressure and moving it around. I hope this has given you a new view of way to look at maybe managing your fabric here. And as you can see, we've got a beautiful, perfect hem with no pulling, no drags whatsoever. And it's quite a large one in a loose weave. But by implementing these techniques, whether you're using pins or not, I guarantee will make you a better sewist, because this is the skill of sewing, is managing the fabric at the machine and you telling it what to do, rather than just putting it here and putting your foot down and saying, go, 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 as we do when we all first start sewing. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. Are you all of the pins, some pins, or on the journey to only a few pins? I'd love to hear it. And remember, if you have any other tips for our fellow sewists here in this community, leave them in the comments below, and remember to read them too. And don't forget to check the description box below, because there are a bunch of other videos there that I know that you'll find really useful as well. Until next time, my sewing friends, happy sewing. Bye.